So last year, we talked about like it was probably 5 guys that were in that bucket. 3 from the college side that were really getting pushed. So Wyatt Langford, Skeens, Cruz. This year it seems like okay, we got those 3 at the top, the 2 arms, 2 high school kids, probably a hair behind those guys with the immediate value with what it has. Weatherholt and Kurtz probably step behind because of the injury. So after that, what does the college class look like? Where is it strong? Where is it weak? I think what the weakness we talked about, kind of the college pitching. We were hoping that it would have a bit more there. What is the strengths positionally from the college side moving past this top 10?
For me, it's definitely in catching. I know if you look historically, there have been oftentimes, not a lot. Let me look at my notes. But in the last 10 years, I think there's been 3 catchers selected. There's never been 3 college catchers selected in the first round in the last 10 years, but there are several times where there have been 2, but more than, I guess the mean is about 1.7. So this year where I'm going is I think there are 2 slam dunk first round catchers with Loma Vida from Cal and then Malcolm Moore from Stanford. But I do think Walter Yannick from Sam Houston State could sneak in there. I know we have him mocked, I think 28th overall. Going in the first round. So that would put 3 catchers in the first round. That'd be a first in over 10 years. With that said, there were also 2 years in the last 10 where that 3rd catcher snuck in at pick 32 twice. So, I was only going out to 30 picks in the first round. So I guess long answer again for me, like you always get, but I think college catching is definitely a strength of this year's class because right behind those 3, you have guys like Jacob Cozart, you have Kevin Cozart from NC State. I had him in the first round until I saw him a few weeks back, and I think he fits more in the second round. Kevin Bazell is having a strong year at Texas Tech. Ethan Anderson's putting the gear on 2 out of every 4 times he's splitting duties there in Virginia, but he was solid when I saw him. I think he can not be a frontline defender back there, but between the bat and what he does bring defensively, I think he's a stick, chance to be an everyday guy back there. So it is deep, not only in the first round, but the top 3 rounds. It's pretty thick class from history. And after that, the college pitching has maybe taken a small step back. Especially, I'm not going to pin it all on Brody Breck, but with him kind of up and down and now kind of back up again, starter reliever. It'd been really nice if he would have been on the Chase Burns bus and just performed all year, because then you have Burns, Smith, and Breck, kind of a 3-headed monster of just high upside starting pitchers. But right behind them, you got Trey Yasavage, a right-hand pitcher from East Carolina. Like, this guy's lights out. He's he's low mid-90s. DJ saw him. He can probably better speak to him. DJ just saw him 2 weeks ago, but he's got a swing and miss slider. His stats are unbelievable. He's been healthy his entire life. Kind of got a different look to him, so there's deception. But he profiles more as a mid-4-ish type starter. You got Jonathan Santucci from Duke, who's a potential first-rounder, lefty starter. And then from there, I mentioned Breck before. But Luke Holman, the guy I kind of want to get down to, people forget. I mean, people see him this spring, and he's been 90-94, pitching at 1 and 2 with sink and a nice slider. It's not a high analytic slider, but it gets outs. But the thing about his fastball is I think people forget he was 94-97. Now, it was only in 2 or 3 inning stints for the Team USA last summer, but he was 94-97. So I think if that is brought up in the draft room at the right time to the right people, he may jump into the first round. So now we're talking there's 5 first-round college pitchers. So I do think starting pitching at the end of the draft, we're going to look back and say, gosh, that was a strength too.
It's funny, Malcolm Moore and Holman, you're talking about guys going back to our draft board from the prep side. Malcolm Moore, super high in that class. He's a draft-eligible soph. The Stanford commitment was carrying him, but he was still featured high. Like, this guy's going to be a first-rounder with the talent evaluation there. DJ, go ahead.
Oh, I was just listening I like the catching stuff that Seif was talking about. That would get me pretty excited if I was a director sitting in a room hearing my scouts talk about that. That you talk about a positional scarcity. College catching is really, really hard to come by. A couple of years ago, it was the Drake Baldwin group. We really like Drake Baldwin. The Braves took him, I think, in the 3rd round. He was from Missouri State, Wisconsin kid. We're talking about northern. Yeah, hockey player. We're talking about northern players yesterday on our call when we were having that offensive conversation with S2 Cognition. And there's a prime example, a northern kid that came down to Missouri State, was a catcher, but it was that group. They had Silas Ardoin, I believe, was in that group. There was a kid from Oklahoma, and then Drake Baldwin. So to hear about all these catchers gets me pretty excited. And specifically when you call out Ethan Anderson, I immediately thought of the guy the Diamondbacks took a few years ago. Was he a catcher? Is he not a catcher? We're not sure. Caleb Roberts, great pick out of North Carolina for the D-backs just a few years ago. So.
He was a really good athlete. I remember watching him. I think he was a junior. Was he a fourth-year college guy that was taken, or maybe a third year? But he was like an outfielder, too. He was a really good athlete, kind of like Kyle Teal. I'm not saying Kyle Reiperts is Kyle Teal, but similar type of talented guy.
Same concept. And that's why teams don't – these catchers that you're talking about, whether you have them at the back of the first round or you have them in the second round, that's why it's really hard for teams to go plowing into high school catching or even to take like a Kevin Parada high in the draft. It's really, really difficult to do that because a lot of times these players that you're talking about now, whether it's a bona fide first rounder like a Loma Vida or a Moore or Bailey from or it's that second tier, there's opportunities to get that stuff later. We talked about taking Spencer Jones because he doesn't exist later, or taking James Wood because he doesn't exist later. Well, when you're about to take catcher, they do exist later traditionally. And in a market that's deep like this, I'd be thinking a lot about that if I was a team.